following program do not necessarily reflect the policies and the position of Now You Know.
Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint, together with expert newsmakers, make sense of the world's biggest digital and stories. I'm Barnaby Lo. It's conversation.
A human rights advocate, West Philippine Sea Crusader, one of the most vocal voices of the opposition in the Senate. Most recently, Senator Risa Hontiveros has taken on an active role in the legislative inquiry into alleged fraud in state insurer Philhealth, all while fending off resurrected accusations of corruption of when she served as a board member in the agency. She has also been a staunch critic of the Duterte administration's handling of the coronavirus crisis. Lockdowns, she said, aren't effective on their own. To that end, Hontiveros has offered an alternative plan that is more humane, inclusive, and health-centric.
And welcome once again to our program, to our viewers on Facebook. And of course, welcome to our guest tonight, Senator Risa Hontiveros, who is joining us live via Skype. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for inviting me, Barnaby.
Yes, like I said, it's been a very busy week and a very busy day for you, so we really appreciate too busy. So I'll get to it, and if you don't mind, I will start with the very controversial issue of alleged corruption at Philhealth, because the Senate investigation will resume next week, and if I'm not mistaken, this will be on Tuesday, August 18th, and Health Secretary Francisco Duque has agreed to attend the hearings, and you ask for his presence there. What do you want to hear from him? What do you expect him to say? What do you think he knows?
I'm really looking forward to his presence, Barnaby, to the presence of Sec Duque at our third hearing of the Senate Committee of the Whole on Philhealth. Gaya ng sinabi ko dati, no, siya yung institutional memory ng Philhealth, having or serving on the board for practically the past 2 decades, except for 1 year, 2016. So dapat alam ng lahat ng maghahalos 2 dekada, no, nasa liderato ng PhilHealth si Sec Duque, as I said, since 2001. You know, I'd been puzzled at his silence during the first 2 weeks that PhilHealth was again at the center of a storm of allegations about corruption. And I think he should really help us shed light on these various allegations over the past decades. Mula sa testimonya sa Senado, it would seem, no, na may mga grupo-grupo o mafia-mafia sa loob ng PhilHealth. And he, as the institutional memory, I'd really like to know from him what is the extent, if anything, of his involvement, and what is the extent of his knowledge. Impossible that it's zero, given his length of service in PhilHealth so far. Sabi nila bilyong-bilyong piso, and mukhang, you know, unfortunately, mukhang may some kind of sistema sa loob ng korupsyon sa PhilHealth. And this wouldn't be possible without some mafia or group inside, and that wouldn't be possible without some backer. So ang magiging tanong ko talaga kay Sec Duque, what do you know, sir?
So ang sinasabi niyo, ma'am, imposible na wala siyang alam.
Imposibleng walang alam because in those past 2 decades, he has served in positions of responsibility. Ngayon, second term na niya bilang chairperson of the board. He has served before as president, and he served once as a member of the board ex officio as the head of, at one time, of GSIS and at another time of CSC. So, kumbaga, hindi mid-level, certainly not low-level lang na tao sa loob. So, he hopefully should and can give us in the Senate a bird's eye view, the past 2 decades of PhilHealth to help us crack that knot, that persistent knot of repeated allegations of corruption within the agency.
Pero ang sinasabi nyo rin is matagal na itong nangyayari because you said he has institutional memory and he's been there for 2 decades. And so are you kind of also insinuating that this is, what is happening right now and what you are uncovering right now is not new?
Well, this is already the third Senate investigation into allegations of corruption in PhilHealth. But even way back 2004, when Sec Duque was then serving as president of PhilHealth, there was already an issue raised against him in relation to that Plan 5 million, the alleged illegal use of 500,000 pesos in OWA funds to distribute PhilHealth cards bearing the campaign slogan of a certain presidential candidate against then candidate Fernando Poe Jr. But even in the last 2 Senate hearings, last year 2019 and then again this year, there have been serious allegations. And the bird's eye view I speak of is his position as having been in the institution the past 2 decades. So he is in a prime position to tell the Senate how true or untrue are these various allegations. Ano na ba ang ginawang pagpapalakas ng mga internal anti-fraud measures within PhilHealth in cooperation with external anti-fraud measures to PhilHealth? And he should help us with that broad and even sharper, truthful view of the goings-on inside PhilHealth, hopefully contribute to our recommendations in the committee report of the Senate Committee of the Whole. How can we, in fact, further strengthen PhilHealth against any real corruption that has been going on in the hands of any real mafias or groups inside, so that it can serve the public, lalo na ngayon, Barnaby, sa gitna ng COVID-19 pandemic, and moving forward that we really, really want to institutionalize a universal healthcare system in the country.
Pero, Sen, iba yung knowledge tsaka iba yung involvement.
Exactly. Yes.
So, are you saying that he may have knowledge, or are you saying that he may have knowledge and may also have been involved in these fraudulent schemes?
The involvement is always a possibility at yun yung gusto naming itanong, and his appearance finally after a half month of silence, his appearance before us will be also his opportunity to lay to rest any such doubts, not just in the minds of the Senate but in the minds of the public. Pero yung knowledge, parang mahirap isipin na walang-wala siyang alam or nalaman or narinig o inaksyonan since he has been occupying positions of responsibility within PhilHealth. So that much at least I expect from the Secretary. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-feign ng innocence about all of these issues.
Yung sa involvement, there's no evidence pa naman to that effect, or is there a small shred of evidence that, or a lead that you are following?
Well, there had been in his previous stints COA findings, for example, of excessive administrative expenses, years 2004, 2008, 2009, and then that very tawag pansin na accusation about the Plan 5 million. And more recently, last year, the issues about the rental of family-owned property also to PhilHealth offices, and after that, issues of conflict of interest in terms of yung pagtanggap ng mga kontrata sa procurement ng mga gamot. So these have been the various blips on the radar in the past 2 decades. But in addition to these, well, I think the greatest service, hopefully, that Sec Duque can do, the Senate and the public, ang mga PhilHealth members sa Martes, ay precisely bigyan kami ng bird's eye view na yan na why do all these allegations recur? Meron ba talagang or wala ba talagang mga mafia, mga grupo sa loob? And how can we again, restore public confidence in PhilHealth bilang pillar dapat ng universal healthcare system, pandemic or no pandemic.
But Senator Risa, you also served as a board member of PhilHealth.
Yes.
It was less than a year, of course, so
yes.
Not nearly as long as Secretary Duque has been at PhilHealth. Pero yung sa I think it was less than a year, no?
Yes, 11 months.
11 months, was
Mm,
it? Yes.
mm.
Ano yung nakita mo doon? And just to get this out of the way, no, I know that you have already denied allegations that you
Yes.
pocketed 15 billion pesos for your
Wow.
campaign, for your campaign funds, you know. But it still persists. Meron
Right.
pa patuloy pa rin yung accusation na yun. So, I mean, once and for all, what is your categorical answer to that? And then yun nga, the second question is, what did you find out while you were there?
Once and for all, as I have been saying, every time they resurrect that fake news in the past 4 years, siguro, well, I guess, Barnaby, siguro dahil malakas akong kritiko ng presidente, wala na silang maibato sa akin, despite the fact that PhilHealth itself and even the Commission on Audit itself cleared me of any of those accusations of wrongdoing. They keep on hurling them back and forth, despite the fact that their accusation pertains to year 2013, and I was there 2014 to 15, at hindi naman ako marunong mag-time travel. Hanggang ngayon, walang ni isang kaso ang COA sa akin sa ombudsman or in any court because precisely they themselves have cleared me. Alam mo, kung sincere lang sila, ang dali namang mag-fact check, ang dali namang mag-Google, okay? But they still insist on doing this. Now, I really feel these fake news again are a big diversionary tactic because what is really true and important? For example, nung nagtrabaho ako doon for 11 months, nakita ko there were already some internal anti-fraud measures which need to be strengthened further. For example, merong internal audit sa PhilHealth, and that has in fact proved useful, helpful, even in past Senate investigations. Maganda yung suggestion ni Senate President Pro Tempore Sen. Ralph for COA to add, say, 2 or 3 more internal auditors within PhilHealth. Maganda rin yung suggestion niya to install a resident ombudsman in PhilHealth. And then until now, one of the anti-fraud measures I'm still pushing, it's already embedded in the Universal Healthcare Law, buuin na. I don't know what's taking them so long. Buuin na ng DOH, PhilHealth at DTI, yung Independent Price Negotiation Board. That is a mechanism to ensure na ang tamang presyo lamang ang babayaran ng gobyerno, whether for medicines, for PCR test kits, for PPEs, and moving forward would prevent overpricing, over-reimbursing, overfunding within PhilHealth.
But in other words, when you were there, you already saw that there were these fraudulent schemes. Same ba from what we're seeing right now? Is it
Iba.
are these things what you saw back then and what we are seeing being uncovered right now are the same schemes?
Iba, mukhang iba. And it's only since last year, and then again this year, that the term mafia has been used to suggest that there is an organized group or there are organized groups inside. And the second hearing last week, we saw the group accused last year and the group being accused this year saying, no, it's not us, it's them. And the other one saying, no, it's not us, it's them. So what's going on? No? Yung mga natutukan ng internal fraud mechanism ng PhilHealth noon, say those many months that I worked on the board before. In fact, for example, it was the internal fraud mechanism that identified suspicious activities in what eventually led to the Senate investigation of the cataract scam. So internal anti-fraud mechanism muna ng PhilHealth ang nag-flag niyan, and so the Senate was able to investigate it.
So walang mafia dati.
Wala pa akong narinig na ganong
no
salita noon.
Yes.
Not that term, no, which has a very different connotation since last year.
Okay. What have been the most glaring discoveries for you in the 2 Senate hearings that have happened?
Siguro dalawa, Barnaby. The first is that there seem to be 2 groups of people, mga responsible officials inside, who were accused. One was accused last year. There's a different group accused this year. Magkaibang mga individual ito, accused of being mafias or of
But
being
they seem
groups
to be accusing
inside.
they seem to be accusing each other.
Eventually, yes, that's what came out in the second hearing because they were accused by separate whistleblowers last year and then this year. But now, during the interpellation in the second hearing, mukhang nag-aakusahan sa isa't isa. So, which sabi ko nga parang Alice in Wonderland na to, curiouser and curiouser. Something that goes beyond mere disagreement or rather goes beyond misunderstanding and hindi siya kayang saklawin ng presumption of regularity. So that's what we want to get to the bottom of. And I guess the second is ito nga, yung pananahimik ni Sec Duque. I would have expected bilang siya yung health secretary and as health secretary, chair of the board ng Philhealth, na naging proactive sana siya before any of us asked any of these questions in the Senate hearing, na mano man lang nagtawag siya ng press conference or nag-issue ng statement to allay the very real, very understandable fears of the public na sa gitna ng pandemic, sa gitna nung we always want to be able to lean on a health system like PhilHealth, mag-uulit na naman yung ganitong mga seryosong aligasyon.
Given your inside knowledge in PhilHealth, are you still shocked at figures that we are hearing right now? 15 billion pesos allegedly stolen, IT budget bloated by 734 million pesos. I mean, laptops at 115 million pesos. This really blows my mind, yung Adobe software na 21 million pesos because I know this is a monthly subscription The Adobe software is a monthly subscription. And then yung interim reimbursement mechanism they suspended now and medyo may concern nga daw dyan. I don't know if you're also concerned that they suspended it because we are dealing with a pandemic right now.
Exactly. Certainly, I welcomed the temporary suspension of the IRM and kaagad ang kailangan mangyari is a clear accounting of how did PhilHealth pre-position these funds, ano yung naging criteria nila. The issues of favoritism have to be addressed, and if through the non-liquidation of initial issuances have to be settled. And I support also the call of Senator Ping that this be temporary for a clear defined period kasi yung mga legit naman na mga hospital at health institutions which have pending legitimate claims, as you said, lalo na sa gitna ng pandemic, hindi dapat naantala forever. Yung IRM was first used in previous disaster situations like Yolanda and like the Taal eruption, and now may parang double context na public health emergency. So kung dahil maganda, mabuti, maayos yung original na intention niya, dapat linawin ito ng hanggat maaga, ng mas madali, so that if it will be recontinued by PhilHealth, it may do so both well and also clearly in the minds of the public properly. Nakakashock syempre makarinig ng mga figures na sinasabi ngayon sa mga aligasyon. Anything of the misspending of public funds from members' contributions, from sin taxes, from government subsidies. As citizens, of course, we expect that these be spent properly. Lalo na dahil yun yung insurance natin laban sa bankruptcy of our families if any of us get sick or have to be hospitalized. So it's always shocking to hear about these accusations and these sums. And so that's why the Senate took the step of constituting ourselves as a committee of the whole. Kasi gusto naming timbangin itong mga akusasyon, totoo ba, hindi ba totoo? Himayin namin which of these are true and must be exposed and must be punished, and which of these are not true. Because in the end, ang gusto naman namin is not just ruins. We want a modernized and reformed institution na kung sabihin naman natin na in every institution, at least half or more than half or a majority of the personnel inside, high-ranking and not high-ranking, are professional and are cleanly doing their job, then they must be supported to continue to do so. But any proven corruption cannot be accepted and has to be removed, both in terms of personnel and the systems.
Pero ang sabi ni General Morales, kahit daw si Superman cannot solve corruption within Philhealth. What are your thoughts about that?
Kung yung image ni PCEO Morales, no, Superman, so superhero, but all we have to work with are human beings. Pero syempre, kung yung mga tao sa loob ng PhilHealth, sa management niya at board of directors, we presume they were appointed there and they were hired there on the basis of their expertise and their capacity. So it's not at all unreasonable to expect na dahil alam nilang may malaking pondo silang hawak, which will any day possibly be the target of corruption, na they should be on double watch, double vigilance, bantayan na hindi ito mangyari. At lalo nang hindi kahit sino sa kanila mismo ang gagawa. We're not expecting supermen and superwomen, but we are expecting the utmost effort to hold and spend these public funds properly and optimally for the people's health. And over time, okay, maya't maya, may mga ganyang akusasyon and it has been established or not, for example, in Senate investigations na meron talagang wrongdoing or walang wrongdoing. Over time, we must continue to improve the performance of PhilHealth. It has done a lot of good in the past. We want it to continue to do so. But any corruption is a diminution of that duty it's supposed to perform for the public. So,
what said kasi furthermore is that there's fraud in any healthcare system in the world. Do you accept this?
Well, he presented the percentages to us of the average of corruption in other health financing and insurance systems in other countries and said that ours is lower. You know, in our own ongoing investigation, we have yet to establish what is that percentage of corruption this year, 2020. But any percentage of corruption, whether the same, worse, higher, or even if lower, supposedly than a global average, it's not to make us complacent or to accept even a level of corruption. We must always, as you know, kung good governance yung sinusulong natin, kahit sa management, sa private sector, sino ba namang CEO ang magsasabi sa board niya or sa stockholders niya na anyway, ganito lang ang corruption natin? It will not be accepted. So lalo na sa isang government institution, we should always strive for 100% clean and proper management of public funds. And whenever there are accusations, and especially if there are proven accusations of corruption, then this must be the target of cleaning within the agency.
And finally, on this topic, how do you feel about Malacanang's reaction so far? First, on the IRM. So, for instance, between PGH and hospital in Davao, ang explanation nila is because that hospital in Davao is bigger, has more beds, and therefore they got a bigger share of IRM compared to PGH, and therefore it makes sense. That's what they're saying, that that hospital is getting or has gotten more share of the IRM. And then second, yun nga, sabi ni Secretary Harry Roque, President Duterte is being kind to General Morales. Bahala na raw si General Morales what he wants to do during the course of the investigation. President Duterte isn't going to pressure General Morales to resign.
Well, of course, resignation is always the call of the official. Pero, di ba, kapansin-pansin that one of the SVPs De Villa, if I remember correctly, already tendered his irrevocable resignation. Though, mabuti naman, he continued to make himself available to the Senate for the hearing, as PCEO Morales also has. Uh, as for yung explanation about which hospital received more or less of the IRM, I would rather hear it straight from Philhealth itself and the Department of Health. Kasi ang hirap naman PGH, aside from being our premier government hospital, is also one of the first declared COVID-19 centers. So we would expect na, in fact, more of its beds are dedicated to COVID patients at dapat priority siya. Bakit ni wala siya sa top 10, no? Priority siya dun sa pag-extend or paggamit ng IRM. It's also more probable that PGH receives patients from a wider area, the NCR and nearby provinces. So I'd rather hear it straight from the horse's mouth rather from Malacanang.
And then we might hear it hopefully on Tuesday.
That's what I really hope. Yun ang pinaka straight from the horse's mouth as you can get from Sec Duque.
Okay. Now, speaking of COVID-19, let's talk about the government's COVID-19 response, because you have been critical of the government's COVID-19 response. Now, the latest to this response is the assignment of cabinet secretaries to different cities in Metro Manila. What do you make of this? Is this an adequate response from your perspective?
Barnaby, so higit 150,000 na yung cases ng COVID-19 sa bansa, and frighteningly, there's no slowing of the transmission of COVID-19. And from the OHS data itself, my God, the reported cases in the first half of this month of August are even higher than reported cases in the whole month of July. The reported cases in the last 14 days, 2 weeks, are higher than the reported cases in the first 6 months of this year. So now more than ever, we really need a medical and a humane solution para tugunan itong community transition. We need the IATF, even before it does things like assign government secretaries to different local government units, some of whom already have their own best practices, models on the ground. And I don't even know if they were consulted before these big brothers or big sisters were assigned to them and over them. We really need. Sorry?
Doing this?
Do I see
Do you see a point in?
a point? Well, actually, the point I would like to see is for IATF to immediately convene an emergency meeting among health experts, including former health secretaries, medical practitioners, public health experts, epidemiologists, frontliners, on their recommendations to immediately slow down the community transition. Hindi pwedeng lockdown lang, quarantine standalone. I'm starting to hear that these secretaries will be in charge even of the barangay quarantines or lockdowns in these LGUs. We need to start from the overall health response. Now, in the areas of our country that are looked at as hotspots, ang dapat sanang gawin ng IATF, even before assigning these cabinet secretaries, IATF, in partnership with the local government units, should go into free pooled testing, lalo na dun sa mga at risk at mga mahihirap na komunidad, the hotspots, the vulnerable communities like our informal settler communities. DOH has to support LGUs, not go over their heads. Support LGUs in deploying more contact tracing teams. At yung tracing natin ngayon dapat active case finding. Free pooled testing in all the households in those hotspots and vulnerable communities. Importante and fully implemented yung proteksyon, suporta sa frontliners, whether hospital-based or also community-based, again in partnership with the LGU. So government needs to accept recommendations from public health experts, those doctors, nurses, frontliners, epidemiologists. Let these experts steer the COVID-19 response in partnership with the local health authorities per LGU. So, wag sanang balat sibuyas yung gobyerno sa payo ng mga eksperto. And these experts, including in terms of local health governance, are also now slowly coming to be found in the LGUs.
So you're saying that you're not seeing that kind of response from the government, because I interviewed Secretary Carlo Nograles last week, and he was talking about pool testing. He was talking about hiring more contact tracers, and I asked him about whether the response has been too militarized and less of a health response, and he said that's not fair. So in essence, you are disagreeing with that.
I am disagreeing with him. In fairness to Sec Nograles, nagustuhan ko the way he conducted himself as the first spokesperson of the IATF. Pero hindi ako makasang-ayon na unfair yung observation na yun. In fact, it is the clear-eyed observation because of the absence in command of the health experts dito sa ating health response. Hindi siya unfair na observation kasi nga naging masyadong heavy-handed nga yung pag-implement ng ating mga quarantines. Whereas what we have needed from the start, almost half a year ago, ay health-heavy response, hindi heavy-handed response. And now, sana habang, week on week, month on month, the statistics and the scenarios are becoming scarier. I never want to say na hopeless na yung situation natin, but it's becoming more and more dire. Sana naman, kahit ngayon, kahit 1/2 year into the pandemic, sana makinig sina Sec Nograles, makinig ang IATF, tawagin yung emergency meeting na yun ng mga health experts. Wag na nilang sabihan yung mga health frontliners na nagre-revolusyon sila. No, these are the experts. They're telling us truthfully what's happening on the ground. Tawagin nila sila, get their recommendations, and please, once and for all, implement.
Do you feel we are ready to go into GCQ next week? Go back.
Oh gosh. Unfortunately, Barnaby, dahil hinahayaang mag-stand alone yung mga quarantine or lockdown, it's practically whatever kind of queue, whatever kind of quarantine they revert to or extend or declare, it almost won't matter kung walang kasamang yung sinasabi ng mga health experts from the start. Mass testing, walang kamatayang mass testing. So now it must be free pooled testing for every household in the hotspot vulnerable areas. Plus contact tracing, which must now be active case finding, isolation pa rin, and treatment, and both hospital-based and community-based. It's not too late. It's late in the day, but it's hopefully not too late kung finally buksan ang tenga at buksan ang isip ng gobyerno sa health experts natin.
Pero mukhang may vaccine na. How much hope are you pinning on that? Because the government seems to be pinning its hopes on this Russian vaccine, and to the point where it has offered Filipino citizens to be funds in the clinical trials.
Di ba sabi ni Presidente, mauna silang magpapaturok? Nung una sabi nila yon. My gosh, Barnaby, our health experts are just giving fair warning na dahil hindi pa dumaan sa kompletong mga clinical trials itong reported Russian vaccine, that those who will volunteer to be vaccinated will be putting themselves at risk. Kasi kapag hindi kumpleto pa yung clinical trials, there's that danger not only of it not working, but in fact of it causing bad side effects. I've heard one health expert even saying possibly death. So, basta ang sa akin, at the very least, the Food and Drug Administration has to ensure na yung mga babakunahan ay, malaya ito sa kalooban nila, walang pagpipwersa. And FDA has to assure the public that they themselves approve of this, because in not just the Philippines but the global scientific community, meron talagang very healthy skepticism about this vaccine dahil sabi nila, even in the global community, ni-rush daw ito.
But with consent,
Mhm.
you're okay with our people being part of this clinical trial?
You know, that's the minimum requirement, Barnaby, pero hindi ko ako bilang kababayan, hindi ko i-encourage. Kasi nga, hindi pa tapos ang clinical trials. So when you take something
Dito
on,
yung clinical trial eh.
I'm sorry?
Lumalabas na dito yung clinical trials.
Exactly. So bakit ko engganyohin yung mga kababayan natin na tayo maging guinea pigs, tayo maging lab rats? No thanks.
All right. No thanks. That is quite a strong statement. May iba tayo, Senator Risa. The very recent series of events, yung kay Randy, no?
Yes.
Chanes. What are you put out a statement on this, yung latest na development na naibalik na yung katawan, pero there seemed to have been a tug of war on the body of Randall. Pero lumabas naman na siya naman talaga yon. When in fact, initially the police was doubting kung siya nga talaga yon. So what are your thoughts on this?
Kung nag-doubt ang PNP na siya talaga yon, pero ang pamilya niya mismo ang nagsabing siya yon. SOP naman yan kapag may namatay, yung pamilya talaga yung mag-identify. Sila yung unang mag-identify at sila yung pangunahing paniniwalaan kung sino siya. I mean, and even just the photo of his body that first appeared in the papers, nakita-kita obviously siya naman yon, di ba? So it was really a double heartbreak, I guess, for the family and the friends to have to, after a violent and highly mysterious death, to even have to go through that additional agony.
And you said you want an independent probe on this. What exactly do you want probed? What do you think is going on here?
Ang daming nangangamba that this killing has happened in the context of, more heavy-handed, well, halimbawa yung anti-terrorism law, yung atmosphere that it has created. So I really support a full and independent investigation of this, preferably led by the Commission on Human Rights and with the full support, cooperation of the Philippine National Police to establish, why was he apparently broken into? Bakit siya mukhang pinahirapan pa? My God, he's a senior citizen, Barnaby, in his 70s, reportedly may sakit. Tapos sinaksak hanggang mamatay. And then yung kapitbahay pa niya was also found there, dead as well, by violent means. And then again, why that tug of war afterwards with the bereaved family and the authorities? So, talaga, isa itong napakasakit na kaso, which I hope that investigation will shed light on, the truth about what happened and give justice to Randall and his family.
You mentioned the anti-terror law. Of course, you've been against the anti-terror law from the very beginning. Do you fear that more of these things, more of these incidents could happen now that the anti-terror law is basically, already the IRR is coming up and it will be implementable?
Well, as I've said from the beginning and until now, ang pangunahing kalaban talaga ay yung COVID-19. And sa kabila nun, what have we seen? Government cracking down through shutting down a big media network at ito nga, pagpasa ng ganitong klaseng batas. So I really also welcome the unprecedented number of citizens' cases filed before the Supreme Court raising the concerns about this. Kasi karapatan talaga natin at kalayaan ang nakataya. And in such an environment or an atmosphere, we see also in this case of Carandal that we are really fighting to protect the most basic things na importante sa atin, di ba? Buhay, fair play, kalayaan sa sobrang paghihimasok ng Estado, since we are each of us just individual citizens when face to face with the all-powerful state. At ano lang ang protection natin? Constitution, which precisely enshrines our freedoms and rights.
But on the other hand, on the flip side, an Abu Sayyaf sub-commander has
Right.
been arrested, turned over to, I'm not even sure if he was arrested or it was given up. It's, a lot of things aren't clear. And how he was able to go to Davao even undetected, and then coddled by Nur Miswari, who of course, who himself is wanted for the 2013 Zamboanga siege. Do you now feel that you are right in saying that the anti-terror law, is targeted or is targeting dissent rather than the problem of terrorism in the Philippines?
From the beginning, Barnaby, I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt, even trust to my fellow legislators na nag-author niyan, that they simply wanted to amend what they saw as an inadequate Human Security Act. Kahit yon debatable. Pero ngayon, in the context of this COVID-19 pandemic and given these recent incidents na pinag-uusapan natin, mas nagkakatotoo yung pangamba ng mga tao na it's not real or, genuinely suspected terrorists na tatargetin ito, but dissent. Even simple, very reasonable and evidence-based dissent of citizens about how government's health and economic crisis responses have been going or not. So, and tingnan nyo, yung policy confusion din, we actually have different pronouncements from our different authorities kahit tungkol dito sa recently na aresto nga ba or nag-surrender nga ba na alleged Abu Sayyaf leader. Iba-ibang sinasabi ng Malacanang, ng ating armed forces. So, ibig sabihin na those who are using laws like the anti-terrorism law to bear down on criticism and dissent, pinagsasamantalahan talaga nila yung sitwasyon, and they are contributing to further confusion and actually insecurity among citizens, which again is the most convenient cover for them para gawin yung mga gusto nilang gawin.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. So just real quick, your reaction on the presence of Chinese surveillance ships at the Recto Bank in the West Philippine Sea. Of course, that is within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines.
Exactly.
And we have confirmation of this, no less than from the Chief of the Philippine Navy, Sir Joby Bacardo, during a forum with the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines just a few days ago.
I'm really glad that FOIC Flag Officer in Command Bacordo, a very good official, has raised the alarm among us citizens about that. What are foreign vessels doing surveilling our Philippine waters and islands? Dapat tayo lang ang nagso-surveil doon at laban sa kanila. So, recalling Barnaby, even the SONA of the President, nakakadismaya sabihin niya na inutil daw siya to fight for our sovereignty vis-a-vis China. And when I say fight, hindi ko ibig sabihin kailangan manggera, para ilaban yung teritoryo natin, yung mga isla natin, yung karagatan natin. Nobody's calling for war. We don't need war. Let's maximize our presence in the ASEAN as one of the best regional platforms of various claimant nations for finally a code of conduct in the whole South China Sea and to bind China to a rules-based engagement with the rest of us. And to be clear, there's no debate. Panalo na tayo dyan sa West Philippine Sea. It was the arbitral tribunal itself which said that. So for the president to say sa SONA pa na wala siyang magagawa, parang sinuko na yung Pilipinas sa China, maling-mali po yun.
All right. And on that note, thank you so much, Senator Risa Hontiveros.
It's
Do
very
you
much.
have some final words? We have like 30 more seconds if you
30
have some.
seconds. Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I always like to say when I learn something new, now you know. So sa mga viewers ng Now You Know, thanks so much for the time together. Let's keep knowing, and based on that knowledge, let's keep acting. Salamat, Barnaby. Ingat and stay healthy.
All right. Thank you once again, Senator Risa Hontiveros, for joining us tonight on Viewpoint on Now You Know. And thank you so much to our viewers on Facebook. Apologies, we did not get to your comments and your questions, but do catch us live here every Saturday on Now You Know, PH's Facebook page at 6 p.m. again every Saturday. Again, my name is Barnaby Lo. This is Viewpoint Now You Know.